Morning, everybody. It's Good Friday morning, March the 5th. It's hard for me to believe that we're actually in March. Now, when I think of March now, I start thinking, well, this is actually the anniversary. It's been about 1 year since we started finding out what the effects are going to be from COVID and what it was actually going to mean for really our culture. It's um, it's been a tough experience, but I believe there's a lot that we have learned from this that hopefully we can continue to absorb as we move forward. But I'm really thankful that we can be together. This is a good way for me to be able to hopefully actively interact with you. And if there's any questions that may come up, hopefully I'll be able to start doing this every time I start trying to set a time way ahead. Something ends up coming up that needs my attention as a pastor here. So I thought I would just go ahead and climb on, and we'll make sure that we get this recorded, and then we'll make sure we get this out to you as far as our updates are concerned. So, one of the things I want to let you know about as we get into March now is we got some sermon study guides for March coming up, and this has been great. So, I hope that they can still be of use to you. But I know March 7th is going to start our North American missions emphasis. Al Barrera is going to be here. And so we're going to have some Bible studies for you during the week to be able to dig in deeper to what Al was talking about and will be talking about. We got a couple more in Ephesians, and then the last one's going to be corresponding with Palm Sunday. But as I was looking over Palm Sunday, I was noticing in Mark 11, let me turn there real quick. In Mark 11, it brought to mind, you know how there's certain times when you read something and then out of the recesses of your brain, something gets brought up, and then you start really looking into it to find out, okay, where did that come from? Okay, so when we're talking about the triumphal entry, Mark 11, it's also in John 12, it's in each of the Gospels, but we're talking about the triumphal entry. There is this, well, let me read to you starting in verse 1. Now, when they drew near to Jerusalem, to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent two of his disciples and said to them, Go into the village in front of you, and immediately as you enter it, you'll find a colt on which no one has ever sat. Untie it and bring it. If anyone says to you, Why are you doing this? The Lord has need of it and will send it back here immediately. And when they went away and found a colt tied at the door outside in the street, they untied it. And some of those who were standing there said to them, What are you doing untying the colt? And they said to them, they told them what Jesus had said, and they let them go. Now, this is what missionaries and church planters call a person of peace. And let me read this to you, and it's going to be in your notes as you study that particular sermon for the week. But here's what it says at the International Mission Board website. Missionaries and church planters talk about finding persons of peace in a neighborhood, city, or marketplace. Often a person of peace will have friends and relatives who are open to a gospel witness and are welcoming to followers of Jesus. Finding them is but one quote-unquote tool of the trade that assists us in locating those in whom God may be at work in a community. Often these people or households of peace are like a gateway relationship into a family, neighborhood, or community. Consider prayerfully seeking them as you go out and live more intentionally. And so what they begin to talk about in the New Testament is in Luke 7, you see the centurion who obviously was working for Rome, but was also open to hearing what Jesus and his disciples had to say. The Samaritan woman in John 4, the Ethiopian eunuch, that he was a gateway into the gospel getting into Ethiopia. Acts 10 and 11, Cornelius, who was also a Roman soldier. Lydia in Acts 16, but was able to help them to get more into Asia Minor and into Europe proper, I should say. The Philippian jailer. And it says we can often recognize the persons of peace because of these 6 things. They'll welcome you, they'll receive you, be open to you in your friendship, be open to what you have to say about Jesus, be interested in and open to the life as you live as a follower of Jesus, assist or serve you in some particular ways. So what they're suggesting is, and I think this is great, what they're suggesting is that as we go about, we begin to think about and pray about God revealing to us and showing us by his Spirit who these persons of peace are. Now you're saying to yourself, now wait a minute. This is for missionaries and church planters. We have a group of people that are already here at the church that we know are persons of peace because they've already trusted in Christ as Lord and Savior. Well, this is where our mentality has to shift, because too often with established churches, the more an established church gets, the more infrastructure needs to be dealt with, more personnel needs to be dealt with. And whereas you're starting off looking outward because you need people to come in, then you start looking inward to make sure that you're continuing to keep things rolling up. And it's often at the expense of looking outward. So we as churches, we as established churches who have been around, an established church can be a church that's been around for more than 10 years. Depending on where you're at, we would qualify as an established church. We've been around since 1960, and we've been on this piece of property since 1965 or 66. But we still have to have a missionary mindset, because the moment we are saved, we are sent, right? There's no such thing as an unsent Christian. So part of the Spirit's work in us is to begin praying for other gateways, other people to where, other gateways and other communities and other ways to where that can be a gateway into reaching other people, because we are finding persons of peace in that new front, in that new territory, as it will. So what can we do? Well, we begin to pray for these things. We don't simply think about our church as a way for us to find some comfort. That can lead to some complacency. Church is a missions hub for us to come and to learn more about it so that we can pass that along to others. So I'm very excited that Al Barrera, who is a church planting catalyst here with our North American Mission Board, that Al Barrera is actually going to be joining us. Now, it's going to look a little different, so I'm just going to tell you, rather than Al being up there and standing behind a pulpit and preaching, he and I are going to have a conversation. We were able to meet this past Wednesday and to kind of go over the directions and the miles markers that we want to be sure that we're hitting. But Al's going to come and he's going to share a lot. And Al is one of my favorite people, not only to talk to, and he's also a jazz lover like I am, but he's a first-rate missiologist. And I am thankful that he's going to come and to be able to share with us. But I want you to make sure that you're coming. You're bringing your Bibles. We'll have notes, a place for you to be able to take notes, which I hope that you'll take advantage of, whether you're coming in person or whether you're going to be watching online. It's something that we want you to be most certainly aware of. All right, what else can we talk about? Again, if you have any questions that you want to shoot my way, I'll do what I can to be sure to catch them and answer them. But as we're getting now into March, Holy Week is coming up. That's going to start on Palm Sunday, which will be March the 28th, followed by the Good Friday service that we'll have on April the 2nd, and then Easter is April the 4th. And I want to just continue to encourage you to find ways to reach out to your one, even if it's a one that you've put actually on the cross that we have on the stage, or whether it's a one that God is putting in your heart that you're like, Lord, I really wish they would know about the gospel and come to know Jesus. Well, when God places that person on your heart and in your mind, then he's wanting to use you as a conduit for his gospel to be able to tell them. So we are going to encourage you, and even that day challenge you on the 7th. Hey, we got 4 or 5 weeks between now and Easter. Use this week, maybe even use it to get on your phone during the service on Sunday to initiate a conversation and to be praying by the Spirit that God would give you the words to say. He's already given you the word. And if you need some helps, we have like one of these things right here. We have plenty of these, but you can also download the life conversation guide, the 3 circles, and it will help you to where you can walk through what it means, what the gospel is all about, what it means to be rescued from our sin and our brokenness and rescued to his purpose. And it goes through it step by step to where by the end, you'll be able to see this. You'll be able to go through this. And if you have it memorized to where you can actually have this conversation with them, begin to do that. But you can have this close by. It's fine. Or an app that will be able to help you as you swipe right. It'll be able to help you share the gospel with people. But this is such turn it around. This is such a great tool, and we've got to be fleet of foot about it and be very, very understanding about how we can share the gospel with folks. But Easter is a great marker for us to be able to share. We are starting to have now over 100 people attend our 2 worship services, not to mention 30 to 45 people that are engaging online. We're getting more and more visitors that are coming. Some of them decide that they want to stick around. Others are still looking. But even so, our goal is to be, make, multiply, and send hopeful, joyful disciples of Jesus. The way you're a disciple is not only relying on the word, but also relying on the Spirit that inspires the word. He will open up doors for you. He will open up an understanding for you to be able to get into the word. But we want you to know that whenever you come to church, that we are going to be lifting Jesus up and making much of Jesus, and we are going to be sticking with what his word has to say. Too often we tend to bring ourselves into the word, and we want the word to say what we want it to say. And therefore we end up picking and choosing, or we end up interpreting things that are based upon our grid. We need to come and to be sure, and we will do all we can to make sure that we're training you in this way to where our thinking is conformed to what God is saying, not what God is saying being conformed to what we are saying. Too often we get it backwards. Let's make sure that we're not doing that. So let me know real quick if you have any questions. I'll stay on here for a couple of more minutes if there are no more, but I am sure grateful that we can be together. I know we're not doing as many videos, but when we do the videos, we sure want to make sure that they count. So be on the lookout tomorrow for your worship guide that'll come digitally. Diane will be sending that. And also, as we go through this, just a couple of reminders. Those of you who were at our leaders get together on the Leading Jesus Way Leaders talk that we had, we're going to have a follow-up discussion. You should have gotten your notes based upon what Rick and I talked about, but we're going to be having a follow-up Saturday, March the 13th at 9:30 a.m. So whenever you sign up for a worship service, you will be able to see a place where you can sign up for that as well. It'll just help us to make sure that we have plenty of room for everybody. You know, the COVID cases are going down, and the whatever that capacity meter that's there, I know it's starting to get into a good spot. So what we're praying for is that the more vaccines that come along and maybe mask mandates will be lessened, then I'm hoping that there will be a time where we'll be able to meet in one service. But I believe God's going to grow us because of what we're doing and how we're connecting with each other. And now we already know how to do 2 services. And we already have the stamina to be able to do that, especially those of us who are at both services. So God, with all of this, even though there's been a year of having this, I believe God has told us and is showing us what really matters when it comes to church, and what may be personal preferences or opinions that we may have that we thought mattered so much. I believe God is really helping us to see what truly, truly matters to this. Hey, guess what? March 14th. So set your clocks if you have to do that. I know mine. I know our phones automatically update. But daylight savings time is coming Saturday or on Sunday, March the 14th. So be sure, we spring forward. Yes, we lose an hour, but that means that more daylight's coming. Super excited about that. Oh, and don't forget here, Grief Share. You see at the top here in the worship guide when Allison is going to be starting up Grief Share, and that's going to be right after Easter, Thursday, April the 8th. If you have any questions, you'll be able to see his phone number and email. Be sure you get in on that, because if there's a grief that you've been dealing with and you've been struggling with, many times we don't know how to deal with that in a gospel type of way. And I'm grateful for Wynn and his experience as a hospice chaplain. He's going to be able to help us in a great way. Our Annie Armstrong Easter offering, this is kind of coming back around to Al Barrera. That's why he's coming, because it's going to start off our week of prayer for our Easter offering for North American missions. The goal is $9,000. I encourage you to go to anniearmstrong.com, or not be org, anniearmstrong.org. You'll get to learn a lot more about who Annie Armstrong is. She was the first WMU director for our, for WMU, for our Women's Missionary Union. Now, any other questions? Any questions you may have? If not, Well, we'll just close it down for today, but let's circle back completely around to the devotional. Let's begin praying for God to give us persons of peace that would be a gateway for us to be able to reach more for Christ, to be willing, not to write them off because they may be, different from us or have different lifestyles from us. Listen, read through the Gospels and see how Jesus connected with those that nobody else wanted to connect with, especially the religious folks, that they didn't want to connect with them because of their lifestyle. Well, we need to connect with them because of their lifestyle to be able to show them how they can be rescued from their sin and brokenness and how they can find meaning and purpose through the cross and the empty tomb of Jesus Christ. So every sermon, listen for those ways, listen for these things that we can do to make sure that we are reaching and not leaning into these man-made constructs and divisions. Let's look at how Jesus can unify us all in the truth, in the gospel, in love. All right? God bless you all. I'm so glad we were able to be together. You all take care. Bye-bye.